So, gang, tell me, what do you guys mainly remember about some Nintendo Directs? Your favorite memories, your least favorite memories. We'll go down the line here. We got AntDude, Anthony.
Hi.
You can start off with a little thesis statement, if you will.
A thesis
on
statement?
your stance on just like your favorite Nintendo Direct memories, your least favorite, just like some obscure ones. What did you think about them when they first appeared? How about let's start with that?
All the way to the bit where Reggie said, "What's wrong with you?" Iconic. That was great because they were like, "Oh, on the 3DS we have video content. You can watch what was it, Donkey's Halloween party on Nintendo Video in 3D." It was like, "Oh, now I have to get a 3DS." No, I always loved when the directs started off and they were very personal and they were always trying to they were experimenting all the time. But if we're gonna talk about immediately least favorite memories, quite frankly, I think E3 2015 with the puppets. I think that's the bottom of the barrel.
Oh, is it the bottom of the barrel for you? I thought they were cute, but...
No. The Muppets are great. The content was trash.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that's why people only remember the puppets. I couldn't tell you what was actually revealed. Like, wasn't that was the year Star Fox Zero, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the big game of that year, and that kind of tells you like what that year was like.
Yeah, because the year prior, 2014, was the Robot Chicken stuff, and that was funny. Plus, the content was really good. 2015, I remember just being like, "Oh, let's go, no, it's Muppets now. That's great." And then like Star Fox Zero, I was like, "That's a Star Fox game." Then they did Skylanders, and like, okay, Reggie said he kind of looks like Bowser. This is I like this a lot. Amiibo Festival, Paper Jam, Ultra Smash, Federation Force. That was a direct. That was one of them.
I definitely have something to say about the E3 2015 Direct, which is pretty much exactly what you'll say. But to just go down the line, just so we give everybody their own due. We also have Derrick here. Derrick, what like any immediate memories with Nintendo Direct? What did you think when they first appeared? What do you think of them now? Anything? Just give me an opening statement.
Opening statement. I thought they were a lot of fun. It felt personal with Nintendo. I think that's the key thing that they introduced, is that, especially with the Iwata era, where you just felt connected. I think that's why everybody kind of beloved Iwata at that point, especially when it came out how good of a developer he was over time. Nowadays, it's like, okay, they don't happen as much, but now they feel like more of an event, because it's not like 2013 where they're happening every other week. It's now a big moment when they come, and you kind of just get to enjoy, and sometimes you get some true gold. The last partner direct was honestly excellent with all the reveals they had. So I think I'm glad they're back. I think they've found ways to kind of make them work and maybe not make them as so constant, since they don't have really a face anymore now that Reggie and Iwata's gone.
They've really fell into a very specific schedule and trend with them, it seems, where it feels like everybody's expecting them every February, every September. It's like every single time, where for a little bit there they kept experimenting with whenever to do them. It feels like they would do them every week or every month or so, but they've definitely fallen into a bit of a pattern with them. So it kind of makes them a lot more everybody's just all right, looking forward to this. But it was kind of fun where it's just at a moment's notice, in a random day in August or something, you'd get a Nintendo Direct. It was pretty fun. But our third guest, we have John. John, what do you? Oh, anything to say about Nintendo Direct before we just get down and dirty with this? Just looking at a Wikipedia article.
I'm very anti-direct. I wish games would not be advertised and that we just went to the shop and blindly played them. I love directs. I think when they were first sort of becoming a thing, the big worry was that they were replacing press conferences. And we were going from these 2-hour press conferences to these 30-minute videos. And people were so scared of that at the time. But that's now the norm. All the companies are doing that. PlayStation's regularly doing that with State of Play now. And it's just become the new modern. So it's kind of interesting seeing that. But also the change from what they used to be to what they are now. Derrick was kind of touching on this. They were very personal. They used to be. And Iwata would kind of talk his way through every game. Sometimes there'd be trailers, but a lot of the time he'd be sort of talking over all of them. And now that's replaced by a professional voiceover guy. So you definitely get this sort of distance between, the edit and the company, which is kind of weird, but I definitely like the personality of the old days.
I think there's something to say about there's value in both kind of a modern Nintendo Direct and an old school one, mainly because the old school ones, they have this charm that I don't really think goes out of like the Nintendo fandom, where it's just like you show a Nintendo Direct to a casual fan and they're gonna be like, this is really boring and slow, and then there's not much going on here. Where it felt like Iwata was like a kid showing his latest like macaroni art to his parents or something. It's obviously more than that, but it kind of had that vibe of like just like him just showing what Nintendo had going on, but you could sense he was proud of it and he believed in it, and it just kind of felt like it like you guys were saying, there just felt like this deeper connection where when you're watching it, it just felt a lot more like this is a friend telling you about video games rather than this is a company advertising new stuff, because now, you have the exact format they've been following, where they don't really have like funny little skits most of the time. They don't really have anything more than just it's Koizumi now, Koizumi standing there and just saying, "What did you think?" He says that after every batch of headlines. And then it's just like, we have one more announcement, boom, and then, whatever the last thing is. And then they have the announcer guy, where it's just this random guy that they hired that has, like, the most, like, it's just like, oh, man, fall is coming soon on Nintendo Switch. And, just this very overly advertised voice. But I understand, like, I feel like they've definitely made the pace a lot better, and they've also made it a lot more, they've nailed down how to do the reveal well, and also just pacing and just something that a more casual audience can kind of chew on. And now you see like 5 million plus people watching Nintendo Directs, like whenever they happen. It's become like a huge sensation. But what's one specifically that you can kind of look back on and you were like that was when you were like, man, Nintendo Directs are pretty cool.
I've got one, and I'm sure we're all thinking it. It's the Louvre Direct, when Miyamoto and Iwata went around the museum with their 3DSs, and I think they're still doing this today. They're at least doing it back in 2020 when I went. But the Louvre had this partnership where they rented out 3DSs, and you had like headphones, and it's basically an audio guide. But there's also stuff on the screen. But Nintendo would partner with 3DS to do that, and there's this whole Direct dedicated to just this field trip for Iwata and Miyamoto. So it was barely even game related, but I just thought that was rad.
It kind of had a sequel with Miyamoto showing off Nintendo World years later.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, I never really connected those two before, but yeah, you're right. They're definitely very they feel very similar. Have any of you really played the Louvre software outside of the museum?
I've got a copy, but I've not played it. No.
Yeah, I did. I have. I don't know why you'd use that outside of the Louvre. I don't know why they did that. Because it's very much an audio guide with pictures, and you can also view 3D models. It's very interesting that they made that their own Direct, mainly because it kind of feels like it would work as a little segment of a bigger Nintendo Direct. But they did that a lot back in 2013. 2013 was the year of the Nintendo Direct. That's when they really pushed it hard, and that's when, for E3 2013, Nintendo said, no, we're just going to be doing a Nintendo Direct. And that was a big talking point back then. People were like, what is Nintendo doing?
Not doing a press conference? Holy cow.
Yeah, it was pretty scary, especially, that first year of Wii U. People were like, you guys need a press conference. You guys need to be able to do this. But Iwata stood his ground. He was just like, no, we're doing a Nintendo Direct. And this wasn't even when Nintendo Directs were like fully proven. When they first started in 2011, 2012, like, it barely even registered to me that they were happening. It was just kind of like, oh, Nintendo posted a video on YouTube. That's all I really felt like. But 2013, they did like a new one every single month. And I think like something that really kind of like pushed it into Nintendo fans' eyes is like, wow, these are like big stuff happens in these. It was like that Wii U Direct in January of 2013. I'm not saying that was an amazing Direct overall, but because like when you look back at it, like they didn't do much. they just kind of said like, oh, we're working on Mario.
It's
But-
so interesting that we look like at the time that was a big deal because I was like,
Yeah.
oh, they're working on a Mario Kart. I think they showed Xenoblade X at the time, Wind Waker, and it was in this vision of like, oh my god, they're doing so much, and now we watch it now. It's really nothing. Like,
Yeah,
it's
for
nothing
years
compared to
everyone
what
would
we
go,
have
but
now.
that January
Yeah.
Direct though, and yeah,
That
you're right.
January Direct, dude, that was the one.
Yeah.
I guess, yeah, because after that they barely talked about Wii U in bulk like that ever again. But
Yeah.
that early stage, it's funny to think back. There was also a few Wii games in some of these Directs too. Like
Oh, yeah.
they've been going on for that long. Pikmin 2, I think, was in a Direct. Last Story was in a Direct.
Yeah, I remember it was like after the E3 2012 press conference, which was very lukewarm, mediocre. It wasn't bad, but it just, like, for the Direct before a system launch, they really didn't sell you on Wii U.
No.
And then, like, only a couple weeks later, they had a Nintendo Direct just go up on their YouTube channel, where that's where they announced, like, the 3DS XL. That's where they announced, like, New Super Mario Bros. 2 DLC. They showed Fire Emblem Awakening. They announced Bandai Namco was working on Smash Brothers. It just felt like a very, you know, like, oh, man, this is what E3 should have been. This was around the time where it just really started to feel like Directs were becoming important. And they kind of did, like, a new Direct every month in 2013, and that was just kind of an exciting time. It just kind of felt like oh man, at a moment's notice Nintendo could reveal damn near anything, where nowadays it feels a lot more like they're probably going to save whatever they're going to talk about for February or September or June.
Right. Just here's the lineup of this quarter so that you can enjoy or whatever.
What would you say is like your favorite eras, and what would you say is like your least favorite eras of like, it's just like, when was it kind of like, I don't know about this, because I'm kind of thinking like specific eras, you know, there's that Peach Fuzz era, I guess you could call it, at the very beginning, where it was like just not really feeling like a Nintendo Direct, but you know, it would be Reggie or NOA employees. And then you have like the 2013, 2014 era, where it's kind of like Iwata on a white background, you know, talking directly to the camera. But in 2014, into a little bit of 2015, they started doing a lot more jokes and skits and all that, throwing that out. Then in like 2015, you know, unfortunately after Iwata's passing, it felt like Nintendo was kind of like, how do we do this? So 2015 to 2016, they really like had more like prominent Nintendo of America employees in the Directs. You had more Bill Trennan, you had more Reggie, you had more of that. And then in 2017, moving forward, we had, you know, red background Nintendo Directs, we had Koizumi hosting them, all of that. What would you say is like your favorite to least favorite kind of eras?
I mean, currently, every Nintendo Direct feels like an event. So I really like this era, because now we know it's usually around like the two different PAXs, because you have spring, fall, and then E3, and they're always big. Now that we have less of them, they always feel big. But I think my favorite time for these Directs was that 2014 to maybe lingering on to 2016 era with the jokes and the skits and all that stuff. I remember, I think it was the Tomodachi Life Direct, which came out of nowhere. Up until then, they were doing their casual talking thing with Iwata, and then the Tomodachi Life is insane.
It was nuts.
Completely out of nowhere, this huge Japanese company now has me, Bill Trennan, talking in the like the text-to-speech thing, telling you about this game, and then you have the cutscene of the giant Iwata head creeping in on that. There's the all hail the Virtual Boy thing. Like, it was just nonsense for 15 minutes, and then that game blew up, and I think they realized, oh, we have something here, and that's when we got, you know, the Robot Chicken skits. We got the Reggie fighting Iwata for the Smash Me reveal, the Yokai Watch skit stuff, with all the Nintendo employees being invaded by the yokai, like that stuff.
The
I
Reggie
loved.
Nader with Mega 64.
Yeah, oh my
yeah, that
god,
stuff
I
was
love that
awesome.
stuff. Like, friends at the time were like, these games are like kind of whatever, but as a Nintendo fan, I'm like, I just like watching this sitcom. This is great.
That's the big difference, isn't it? Because that era of Directs, I think the skits kind of made up for the lack of games. And sometimes, I don't want to call Yoko Watch a lesser games. I think Yoko Watch is cool, but it definitely got a big push in a way that it wouldn't today. Whereas now it's just game. And sometimes I think the modern era just has these massive games that weren't really in the older Directs. Like stuff like Metroid Dread. That game coming back and being revealed the way it was with all this gameplay and it launching in like 2-3 months, like that was massive. A Direct's kind of changed how games release, because in the past it used to be, June is the time where we announce all our games, and that's for like the entire rest of the year. Whereas now Direct can air any time, and a game can launch like the month after. That's totally different for the hype cycle. So yeah, I think the modern era is my favorite.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The games seem bigger. I mean, the skits will always be fun, but it's a matter of, do you like the present? It's better from a presentation standpoint, where you just it's a fun thing. You never know what you're going to get. But as far as the games, they just are better, and they also, especially with all the Smash Directs, felt more informative. Like, you got a game design lesson and more from Sakurai, like the thought process, how each works. Just the man kind of showing off, especially when he was doing those directs from home. Like, my God, that man set up.
And playing Smash with 2 hands and 2 controllers. Just
seriously.
showing off.
I mean, speaking of Smash, like every direct was like, oh man, what's the next Smash character gonna be? And are you happy that era's over? Like, are we free of
it's
that,
been
or?
going since it went from 2014 until last year.
Man, I don't
exciting?
know. I don't know. It's hard because it's just like, it's always new Smash characters is always exciting. But near the end of Smash Ultimate, I was like, it's a good time to wrap things up, kind of thing. Where just it felt almost like I almost felt more anxious when a new Smash Brothers character would get revealed. Where it's kind of like, it's just like, is this gonna be good, or is this gonna be just gonna make everybody super upset, kind of thing? A modern Nintendo Direct feels the most exciting, though. I think they've raised the expectations so much for them that it's kind of hard for them to do the smaller ones that may be a little more jokey, or like just smaller ones with smaller games, because I just noticed, we just got off of the September Nintendo Direct, and I thought it was okay. It had enough stuff there. Obviously, the pacing was a little odd with like the amount of games that they had, just kind of looking similar and feeling similar. But overall, like, I thought it was okay. But there are people that were just like violently upset at it, where it's just like, but it's still like, you got a fair amount of like really good quality and big announcements with that, with like Pikmin 4, Tears of the Kingdom, even just stuff like Kirby's Return to Dreamland Deluxe, and that's the kind of stuff we would have killed for during the Wii U era. We would have been like, oh please God, like I don't want to talk about New Super Luigi U for the 5th time,
We'd have all this time to actually play all those farming sims that got announced.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's what I noticed the most, is that certain genres get catered to with the directs more recently. A lot of, especially RPGs, and you have some fans that are just over the moon, that are like, yes, this catered directly to me. These are all in my interest. I am happy. But the people who aren't interested in those genres, that's when you get the vitriol. It's like, oh, this sucked. There was nothing here. I was so bored. And I think that's where the mix-up comes from, because it seems so hyper-focused on certain genres, and you don't get a lot of variety.
It's the same with the minis too, right? Like, I remember when one of them had Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, and I was like, oh, hell yeah! And then I went to Twitter, and everyone was just so mad about it. I was like, but guys, Puyo Puyo Tetris! But yeah, because minis don't generally, I mean, sometimes they do, but most don't have Nintendo games, so a lot of Nintendo fans they aren't there for that.
Well, that kind of brings up the other question of just, the different types of directs they've had. They've had Nintendo Direct Minis for a while here, but they introduced like the partner showcase in 2020 to kind of make up for the fact that they weren't able to do regular Nintendo Directs due to the...
It's a dark time.
Yeah.
Dark time.
They got really good near the end, and now like a Nintendo Direct Mini partner showcase with like the June 2022 one is like incredible. Like, that had so much stuff.
Oh.
But then in 2020, like, what was going on with that? I don't understand.
Was that the one that had WWE?
Yeah, WWE. Like, you can tell there were contractual obligations that they just couldn't do because of the world. They're like, Road Company, WWE.
I will never forget the hype up for a brand new Way Forward game.
Oh my God.
And then it ended up being, what was it? What was that?
Bakugan.
That was Bakugan.
Bakugan. That's
Bakugan.
it. God, I have never felt deflation like that from so many people.
Well, that was like they hyped it up like on Twitter, but that was like one of those things where it was kind of like half Nintendo Direct, half like Treehouse thing. And that kind of makes it weird for me, like when they decide to label things as directs and when they don't. They've done a lot of like rebranding here and there. Does anybody remember like when they randomly called like a Nintendo Direct Mini and Nintendo Direct Micro?
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Oh yeah.
They just
Did that have, was that the one with the tiny Bill Trinan?
Yeah.
Or was that a
Tiny
different
Bill
one?
Trinan,
And
yeah, because I think the Chibi Robo game was coming
yeah,
out.
that was the Ziplash announcement for North America, and they still had a decent amount of stuff there. They talked about like Mario and Sonic 2016 and like a couple games coming stateside, like Little Battlers Experience, which I knew nothing about, but I think Nintendo published that.
I did play that game. It wasn't bad. It's about the closest you'll get to custom Robo anymore.
That was like during the 2015 era where Nintendo was just like, oh god, like sure, let's localize that, we'll publish it. We need stuff on our system. But they randomly like rebranded that, but they used to have like the Nindies showcase, and then they rebranded it to Indie World, which I never understood why they changed that. I assume because Indie World makes more sense than like Nindies, which is cute, but like people might be like, what is that?
I think well at that point I think they were like showing off like, hey, we have indie devs from all over the world. Like if I'm not mistaken, whenever they would show a new developer, it would show where they're from.
Ah, okay.
So I think that was the idea behind that.
I never
But
never
it's also
registered
weird
to me.
because like I think it's weird because like the indie worlds are usually fun little shows, but then they also pick indie games for the directs sometimes. So like the discrepancy of what gets decided to go into direct and what doesn't.
Right.
I think
always
it's
very
how
peculiar.
mainstream it is. Obviously, people expect to see Hollow Knight Silk Song in Indie World. That's not appearing at an Indie World. It's going to appear in a direct.
And they play it loose with the word indie in Indie World sometimes. Like, Tetris Effect was in one of them. They've had No More Heroes, Travis Strikes Again was in another. And Cadence of Hyrule. I mean, technically it's made by an indie studio, but it's Zelda.
Well, they also have, the Cuphead announcement, Ori and the Blind Forest, and those are like, and like Cuphead, like these are still indie games, but, Ori and the Blind Forest is published by Xbox, Microsoft, so it's just like, like, I don't know. It's a little strange, but they also like started calling like Pokemon Directs Pokemon Presents. Like it felt odd that they started to kind of separate directs from like these other presentations a little bit there. And then they decided to just call like their E3 2014 and 2015 presentations digital events. And E3 2017 Nintendo Spotlight. Like, very, very random. I think they did that mainly because, like, they had literally, like, 20 minutes of content. So they were like, oh, it's a spotlight. It's quick. We're just going to go through, like, each and every one. I remember that one was just funny because, like, people were like, oh, it's going to be an hour. And then there was more information coming out, like, every day where it's like, oh, it's 50 minutes. Oh, it's 30 minutes. Oh, it's actually 25 minutes. It might be 20 minutes. Like, it just kept on going down and down.
Made everyone paranoid.
And people were freaking out about it. But Nintendo's done some things where like they'd separate a lot of info via Nintendo Directs, where like 2012 they had a Nintendo Direct before their E3 press conference where it was like, oh, that's where they showed off Miiverse and whatnot. And then before E3 2015 they had like a Smash Brothers specific Direct where they showed off Ryu and Lucas and Roy and all of that. But that shows how they have a lot of like game specific Directs. So is there any that like really like you guys remember specifically, any game specific or game series specific Directs?
Dude, absolutely, because I remember the Fire Emblem Direct. That was like such a big deal. It was like, oh, okay, they're doing Fire Emblem. That's interesting. Like Awakening had come out and Fates was a thing. Like, okay, they're doing a whole Direct. This is interesting. They had a remake of a game on the 3DS when the Switch was coming out. They did Fire Emblem Warriors, a brand new Fire Emblem game, and they the mobile game. That was like, oh wow, Fire Emblem's being taken seriously now. And I remember thinking, like, as like the fan of Nintendo games that are like deep in the trenches, to see it now be elevated, and now you see like the February Direct was bookended by Fire Emblem and Xenoblade. Like that's crazy.
That Fire Emblem Direct was like a week after the Switch presentation too.
That's
That was a wild month. That was a wild month.
It's funny when they decide to either do a game-specific Direct or just announce it. Like, Paper Mario the Origami King just got unceremoniously tweeted one day. Just the trailer out there. It wasn't in a Direct. It didn't get its own presentation. It's hard to say like when do they decide to do their own thing? When do they decide just to tweet it out? And there was a period, I think it was probably last year, maybe the year before, where they just started just doing like a Twitter direct, where instead of any sort of presentation, they just announced games out of nowhere. I don't know which I prefer, to be honest, because sometimes those game-specific directs can be very slow, and sometimes they can give you like too much info. Like with Xenoblade 3, I didn't want to know much. I didn't really want to see that direct. I just kind of wanted to play that game. And that was enough for me.
The nice thing about the Twitter ones is that you typically don't get spoiled. With directs coming soon, you always get these rumors like, oh, this is going to be there, this is going to be there, this is going to be there. And you lose a lot of the surprise that you'd have otherwise. So Twitter, nobody really expects. It's just, there it is. Oh, okay, cool. That looks awesome. And you kind of get excited for it. But you don't have that shared experience that a direct brings where you're with Chad or you're talking about afterwards with Twitter or anything like that. It's just sort of lost. And even those game-specific directs are kind of becoming fewer and fewer. Like we got one for Splatoon 3, we got one for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and New Horizons this year. And that's pretty much it outside of Pokemon stuff, but Pokemon's sort of its own thing. And there was a while, like we were talking before, how like, you know, I think you saw in Japan that Coldcept got
two back-to-back Coldcept Revolt directs.
Yeah.
You know, that classic title. I'm sorry to upset the Coldcept Revolt fans who are watching this. I don't know.
The Wii Fit U direct. How could anybody forget the Wii Fit U direct?
Oh, yes.
It wasn't even all about Wii Fit U. They talked about Wii Sports Club there too, and Wii Panorama View, and like.
Please care about these games still.
Yeah, it's I like. Remember the Mario Kart 8 direct in like 2014? That's when it was literally just a 40-minute skit. It was just a 40-minute variety show.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
There was a guy sitting on his couch eating cereal and stuff, and they had a news presentation. I forgot about that. That was blocked from my memory.
That was a different time.
They had to soften the reveal of what was it like? That was where they revealed the final few characters, which was basically just Pink Gold Peach and Baby Rosalina. And they were like, we gotta reveal this info somehow. Let's just make a 40-minute variety show. Or just go through a bunch of different skits. It's wild, but they really
maybe they'll have fun with it.
But I think like the main ones that they kind of always have like game specific directs for. Each Splatoon has had a game specific direct. And they've had constant presentations for Smash Brothers, Pokemon. Smash Brothers has had like a ton of them, and I always really appreciated them because they do go very in depth with just kind of like the finer details. I remember the original Smash Wii U Direct in April of 2014, and Sakurai was just talking directly about just like a lot of more development-esque things and a lot more in-depth things that didn't really matter in the grand scope of advertising the game, but I just thought it was really cool. They also did like these random YouTube videos in 2013 called Developer Directs, where like a lot of games they announced during E3, they just had like the developers talk about them, and I miss that. I wish they would do that more often.
Yeah, it's such a closed-door industry. We don't get these documentaries or behind-the-scenes looks. Like the only time we really get that is like the Breath of the Wild Champion book or Odyssey's art book. It's so rare we actually get to see any of this development stuff, and I love hearing about it. In terms of game-specific directs, though, one that I think, in retrospect, I quite enjoyed. At the time, there was some deflation, but that Mario 35th Anniversary Direct, like that gave us Mario 35, 3D All-Stars, Bowser's Fury, that Mario Kart RC game. Like, there was some good stuff in there, and I miss Mario 35 so much. That was such a cool game. But yeah, I think looking back, that was a pretty good presentation.
Even if 3D All Stars, because 3D All Stars was kind of the big like, oh man, one more thing kind of thing, and there was so many rumors going up to it, like just thinking like it's just like, oh man, full remakes of all of the games, and it's just like
expectations were way too high. Yeah,
but I still think like that kind of thing, like they packed so much into it, and it was still exciting because like there was so much to discuss afterwards, and I think that's what truly makes a good direct, when there's something to really chew on afterwards, and you have that discussion after.
I think the original Splatoon direct, because Splatoon shot out of nowhere, all of a sudden this new exciting IP that just clicked as soon as you played it. I remember when it was revealed at E3, and then you had a direct, and I think that sort of set the tone for the world of Splatoon and sort of the vibe that it gave off. And I think that sort of sold it to a lot of people. Like it sort of helped establish what this world was like, what it was going to be, and probably raised the hype much more to get it to be the success that it has been, because it's still mind-boggling that one of Nintendo's biggest new IPs originated on the Wii U.
And ARMS always gets compared to Splatoon, but it's just such a different vibe. Like as you're saying, like Splatoon's their announcers, their dialogue was so in the world of Splatoon. ARMS couldn't quite do that, but I think they tried to replicate it in a similar way with their Direct, but it didn't hit the same.
They tried to do it with whatever, that fist thing, that fist head thing, I forget his name. What's his name?
Oh yeah, he was the announcer
Oh,
for that.
the little guy that was
yeah,
like this.
and like he talked in an announcer voice
Oh my
in the
God.
Direct. He was just like, "Welcome to the world of ARMS," but in the game itself, he talked in gibberish. And I was just like, I don't get it.
It's like they still have that disconnect with the Pokemon Presents recently, where they have not even presents the trailer, where they have that idol talking in Japanese, like, yes, give us voice acting. No, it's nothing in the trailer.
It was just interesting. They did an ARMS Direct, and to kind of sell people in ARMS a little bit, they said, like, and there's a Splatoon 2 trailer at the end of it, too.
That's right.
Yeah. It was, I think that just shows how popular Splatoon got. It was pretty wild to see, like, just a second entry in, they used it as leverage to get people to watch ARMS.
It also goes to show that just having Direct in the title does not always guarantee success.
No, Wonderful 101 Direct.
I was gonna say Wonderful 101. Oh, God rest its soul. That game never had a show. No matter how much Nintendo's like, please buy it, everyone's like, nah, I'm good. So that I remember there was a Dragalia Lost Direct.
Man.
Pocket Camp, which is still going somehow.
Pocket Camp had a Direct. Now Pokemon, we mentioned before that Pokemon doesn't really do Directs now. They do Presents because they include mobile games and stuff. Do you remember when they were like, oh, we're going to show off a mobile game in this Pokemon Presents, and then it was Pokemon Unite, and then it was like a Pokemon Unite Let's Play for like 10 minutes?
Yeah, a lot of...
That was hell.
Yeah, I think the one thing Nintendo Directs always have is they can always have kind of funky pacing. It's always been a little strange. Yeah. Even like now, they've gotten really good at just bang, 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 but they can still like drag on a little bit. Specifically with the September 2022 Direct, I think everybody was just like, when Miyamoto started talking about Pikmin Bloom for like 3 minutes, it was just a little strange.
That deflated the Pikmin 4 announcement to me.
I knew what he was doing.
That was an
I knew what he
out-of-body
was doing.
experience.
There was no
I
way.
had a feeling, I hoped, but it was also like, boy, I don't care about this, and so all my hype was just gone.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay, Pikmin, sure.
I mean, when other companies try and do like their version of Direct, like very few can do it. Xbox tried it with what was the Xbox version called?
Xbox.
Anyone remember?
Oh my God.
All Access? No, not
It was
All
something
Access.
like that. Yeah.
They stopped trying, I think. They don't
The
do
fact
it
we
anymore.
can't remember the name, like that kind of says it. But they basically did. It wasn't even at the snap announcement. It was more like a talk show where they just lounged around and sometimes announced something. And you're better off just like looking at Wario on Twitter. Like, there's no need to stick around for that. And Square did one where they showed like 40 minutes of Guardians of the Galaxy. They announced pixel remasters for PC, and then it just ended. Some companies just can't get Nintendo's pacing down, even if it's sometimes funky themselves.
You'd think a lot of people that work for this company, and they probably definitely do, they look at that and it's just like, you can't present this stuff. Like, it's not, like, people are not going to react well. And it feels like Nintendo has truly gone at least the pacing down for the most part. Obviously, there's going to be kind of like some slow portions. In the Direct, they revealed Nintendo Switch Sports. Like, they didn't really need like a portion where they showed like like 30 seconds of like a tennis match. But I think they were kind of trying to channel that original Wii energy where, on stage they would be like, hey, let's demo a game of tennis or something. But I think they've definitely gotten a lot better. But it just felt a lot more personal back in 2013 and in 2012, 2014, when it was just Iwata just talking about what was going on. But I will say, it kind of made it so then the middle portions of those older Directs were always kind of like they didn't have much. It just kind of felt like, oh, this stuff, who cares about this stuff? Where now, like, they'll randomly cut back to whoever the host is, and they'll be like, what did you think? This next announcement, and then they let a trailer play, and they know it'll be kind of like a bigger deal. Whereas back then, it was kind of like, all right, Iwata talks to you about a couple things, and then they go to, like, Bill Trennan, who talks to you about a lot of the stuff you may not care about, and then back to Iwata for, like, 2 more announcements, and then we're done. Whereas now they kind of spread out the bigger announcements throughout the show, which I think is definitely better.
Yeah, and the amount of games they show off now is kind of overwhelming. Like, a lot of the older directs, maybe 10 games, like, spread across, and not even exciting things. Like, I remember when the Year of Luigi was happening, and
besmirch the Year of Luigi.
Man, one of their announcements were like, get this, Luigi's gonna be in Smash.
Oh yeah.
Oh. Yeah,
John, you say don't besmirch the Year of Luigi. That is Nintendo's worst year to date.
Oh, I'm not.
Financially, that is Nintendo's worst year.
That casual way of just Iwata talking through a game reveal was so funny, because that was, I think, Mario and Luigi Dream Team. It just, like, faded to white, faded back, and it's just Luigi sleeping. It's just Iwata goes, this is Luigi sleeping. Now, why is he sleeping? And then you just mess with his mustache, and it's like, this is great. This is how we announce games now? I love this.
He was so fun with how he described things, because it would always be, like, in the most, like, just wholesome way, where it's just like you just listen to him how he describes something, where he's just like, it's just like, what you just, like, well, what did you think, what you just saw, and he'll explain to you like what you just saw, and it was just like a logo for something, or it's just like or it's just like, I don't know, the Shin Megami Tensei Cross Fire Emblem thing. Like, oh man, show that, and then what you just saw, it's just like, what do you mean what I just saw? He just showed a logo.
I completely forget which Donkey Kong game it was that he just came back and he's holding the bananas.
That must have been Tropical Freeze, right?
Was it Tropical Freeze?
I think that was in 2012 though, because
that would have been Returns.
Yeah, I don't think there was a Donkey Kong thing. I think it was cut to him holding bananas.
I was like,
oh, now Nintendo's so wacky.
Yeah,
they did Lego Iwata for the for Lego City Undercover for no reason. They were advertising Lego City Undercover on Wii U, and then they were like, and ladies and gentlemen, Lego Iwata. They just cut to him, and there was just this CGI version of Iwata that was Lego, and all he said was like, I am Lego Iwata, and then just cut back to whatever they were doing. It was
they'll sometimes do region specific skits too. Like Satoru Shibata would he did like Phoenix Wright hair for one of, I think it was Phoenix Wright ex Ace Attorney for that one.
I forgot about it.
And I mean later ex Ace Attorney, I should say. And there was also like a Yokai Watch one. It's so weird seeing how they'd make these very different skits depending on the region. I guess Japan would have done those too.
Didn't he do like the Yokai Watch dance for like, the reveal?
Oh boy.
Yeah.
It's it was so many, just like there's so many, like, I feel like you can pull any Nintendo Direct, even the worst ones, and find something of value to pull out of them, even if it's ironic. And that's what's always fun about it. And you can't say that about like State of Plays or. I am also blanking on the Xbox presentation that they did. That was more of a tech show.
No one knows.
I forgot. It's Inside Xbox, right? Inside Xbox?
That might be it.
And they've retired it, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that's not a thing.
Because they just can't do it as well. And every now and then it feels like Nintendo does pull out a press conference every now and then where I think they learned their lesson from the Wii U, where they were traumatized by the Wii U, where, you know, E3 2013, they said, like, no, we're going to do a Nintendo Direct, and, you know, before the Nintendo Switch launch, that's when they did the Switch presentation. And for me, that was, like, at 11 p.m. at night, which was, you know, strange. And they had to do, like, direct feed from Japan, and they did live translations, and that was such a wild night, where it's just like you got like all these big game reveals, but in like the one of the more clumsy ways possible, at least compared to like how Nintendo presentations went around that time, where I think Nintendo really did show the value of these pre-recorded presentations, where, you know, like, you didn't have all these issues pop up, you didn't have these issues arise, you could really just tweak this presentation to be exactly what it needs to be. But I think they wanted to show off the value of Switch, and they wanted to show that they were really confident in it, so that's why they did kind of a press conference. But maybe they'll do more in the future. But I think people are so used to directs, though. Every now and then the argument's brought up because Nintendo will randomly reveal something via like Twitter or something, or just upload something to YouTube. The argument gets brought up every now and then of like, do we need Nintendo Directs, or like, are they ever going to go away? And what do you all think about that?
Oh, absolutely. Like, just bringing everyone together to just be hyped for Nintendo games. And I feel like every time a Direct happens now, it gets more views in as the same amount of time than the previous one did. I remember the Mario 35 Direct is like the highest viewed Direct of all time. I don't even know if that's still the case, but like all the ones after that, they do crazy good numbers, and we see the game sales justify the presentation. Like Metroid Dread, highest selling Metroid game of all time. It was shown off in a Direct. So now, like, we don't need to do anything else. I don't understand the narrative of needing to get rid of Directs, because the idea of showing off these games in these pre-recorded ways, like you brought up a point about these issues happening at these shows, like Skyward Sword had its own share of issues. I remember when Reggie was doing Zombie U and tried to do like the zombie cam thing, yeah. Yeah, I can't imagine why we would want to go back to that era when these other things are proving to be so successful. The press conferences are nice, and the Twitter drops, they work, but the Twitter drops happened, I think, as a result of the world in 2020, not so much by choice.
Also, I think Twitter drops, you can only really be excited for a Twitter drop if you're already excited for the game. So if they announce Paper Mario, as a Paper Mario fan, I'm going to watch that trailer. But if I were not a Paper Mario fan, I might ignore it. If I'm watching a Direct, though, and it's included in there, then I'm forced to watch it. So in a way, the bigger games kind of hold up the smaller ones. Like Harvestella, for instance. I think that game looks rad. But would I be interested in it if it weren't in a Direct? Maybe not. I think that's very important.
That does raise a good point, because the fear, though, is that people focus on just the big titles. They're only talking about the big titles, and the smaller titles like Harvestella, like Rune Factory, whatever, get lost in the shuffle, and everybody forgets it. And the discussion's not there. But with a Twitter drop, at least you have some discussion. It's like, oh, the Nintendo showed this thing off, and you get to take a look at it. That might be the argument for getting away from Directs, but I think being forced to see everything because you want to see what they might show kind of warrants it sticking around. And I really don't think Directs are going anywhere.
No.
Yeah.
They take a hiatus every now and then, but they always come back.
I think they are very important because it does give like smaller games a chance to at least be in front of people, even if they don't leave an impression, because there's probably like 15 games from the last Nintendo Direct or the Direct before that I don't really remember. I can't really go. It's just like, oh yeah, that was there too. But I think just being in front of people is more than enough, and it just shows like, hey, here are all the games we have coming to Nintendo Switch. And also, it just, I think it's just good because, it makes Nintendo Directs less of about, oh, only if you really like Nintendo things, but about just, hey, if you like video games in general, check out a Nintendo Direct, because there probably is going to be at least something you're going to care about in there. But I do think having that live event that everybody can look forward to. They recently did it with the Super Mario Brothers movie Direct, where, if they were just following a normal movie trailer release strategy, they just, upload it. Or they might tell you like a specific time, but, live streaming it and having Miyamoto talk about it a little bit, it gives everybody something to kind of look forward to and also joke about and also discuss and just kind of, that way everybody's watching the trailer at the exact same time, or at least, everybody watching the Direct version. And I think it gives a chance to, for people to record their reaction videos or watch it on live stream with everybody and all of that. And I think that's really important. That's something that you can't really do as well with a Twitter drop, because you know exactly what it's going to be before you open it up. When Paper Mario was announced, you saw the tweet saying there's a new Paper Mario game, so the surprise is kind of there, but it's not when you're watching the trailer. You're not kind of thinking like, oh, what is this? But to kind of the big question to ask though, what would you say? Because everybody has like those announcements in a Nintendo Direct that's like, oh my god, or an announcement that just really rubs you the wrong way. What is just the biggest reaction you've had out of an announcement in a Nintendo Direct?
Yeah, this isn't my personal one, but I think the biggest reaction I've seen is probably Color Splash. When that game was first announced, it caused this big ripple in the Nintendo community where suddenly, like Paper Mario was never this huge vocal franchise. Like it was this sort of niche. The people that were fans like Thousand Year Door in the first game, but it was never this giant vocal fan base. But suddenly, it became that. Like, it suddenly became this huge drama for that game. And if you even talked about Color Splash, it would just invite a huge debate. And that series has never been the same since. I think that's one of the biggest blemishes they've had on Directs.
It was weird how they announced it. It wasn't even like, oh, and we have a game to show. They had it in like kind of a just like as a bullet point. Like Bill Trennan was just talking about games coming to Wii U, and it wasn't even like we have a brand new game coming to Wii U. It was talked in the same vein as like Pokken Tournament was, because Pokken Tournament was already announced at that point. It was coming out like the month that Direct happened. And I think it was like talked right before or after Color Splash, so it felt like Nintendo knew that people might not be the happiest with that announcement.
When I think of like the big reactions for Direct, my mind immediately goes to Smash. And I think my favorite, the reaction that got the biggest pop out of me was Banjo-Kazooie by far. Just like the anticipation of like this could be the time, and then the puzzle piece, and then the fake out with the Duck Hunt dog, and then seeing the music and everything. I was almost crying at like seeing Banjo-Kazooie back in such a glorious way. And then like soon after that, when they're showing off Banjo, like, oh, let's check out the Mii costumes. And that was always a time where we came out as different people after the end of those Mii costume directs. Because man, when they showed off Sans, oh, that was a life-changing moment right there. That was big. And then also the Mario movie cast reveal.
Oh yeah,
iconic. Yeah. Legendary time.
Mii costumes are so funny though, because a lot of people put their heart and soul into getting certain characters in, and if their choice were to be a Mii costume, there's nothing more deflating to them. Like those characters like Isaac from Golden Sun, if he were a Mii costume, it would the live chat would explode. People would be so disappointed by that.
Yep. Doom Guy was the final one, and he had a chance, and like, man, right at the end, you thought it might have been Doom Guy. Nope.
As far as actual Smash characters deflating people, I remember Byleth. Nobody was happy about Byleth, it seemed. Yeah. And especially for it to be the last one of the first DLC pack. I think they realized they needed to have a second DLC pack because people were not happy.
I think we kind of made ourselves upset at that for no reason. I'm not saying like we specifically, but like it's something where it's just like, well, this is what they were ending out on. It's just like, well, beforehand they announced there was going to be a second pack, so it's just like I'm kind of like, I don't like. It's just like it's not that this is ending things out, like, because like what, like 3 months later we got another character, so it's just like I don't know. And
it's not like Smash ever ended with the hypest character as their last reveal, because I think it was the Incineroar for the main.
It was Incineroar and Ken were the last.
And then also Piranha Plant, so it's just like, it's just like not the one.
Which that caused a rift. I was shocked how many people were just upset about that plant being in the game.
Oh yeah.
I'd say that Smash Ultimate Direct in August of 2018, that had so much stuff in it. They revealed like 5 characters all in that one thing, and then they revealed like all the stages. They showed all this stuff going on. They also kind of teased the whole spirits mode, but censored it. And then they followed it up with a direct that just felt a lot less, had a lot less of a punch there, because they just didn't have as much to reveal. They were going through too many technical things. Like in the November 2018 one, they spent a long time on spirits. But I would say the initial reveal of like everybody is here was like the most like brain melting reaction. I think it was genuinely like, what? Like, oh my god, this is insane.
When they show Peach, it's like, oh, everyone is here.
Yeah.
I thought.
Not Snake.
Not Snake. I thought for a second.
Nobody thought Peach would come back.
I thought for a second you said Peach. It's just like, oh my god, they got everybody in this. No, I'd say my my least favorite moment was something Ant you already discussed, which was E3 2015. That was dreadful. The skits were nice and they were fun and they were cool, like the puppet stuff and just seeing all the developers and all that. But the games they announced, like my god, that was where they announced Federation Force and all of that, and they ended on the Mario Maker 30th anniversary sweepstakes or something where it's just like you had to submit. Yeah, you had to submit yourself doing the Mario thing. Or something. But in contrast, E3 2014, that was one of their best ones ever, in my opinion. They had that was where Breath of the Wild was initially revealed. That was where they initially revealed Splatoon, Kirby and the Rainbow Curse, Captain Toad, Smash Brothers was coming out that year, so you had more going on with that. Overall, like I think every direct, even the dumbest ones, has a little something to chew on and a little something you can look back and go like that was pretty cool. Even like the worst Nintendo Direct Mini, the partner showcase, the first one where they showed WWE and WWE.
Bakugan.
Just had WWE. They had Shin Megami Tensei at the end of that, which at least was kind of like that's cool.
They did,
but overall. One last note to end it on. As in, I'm asking everybody, what's your last note to end on about your Nintendo Direct memories?
Chris Pratt, he's so cool. he's so cool. Stomps on
Koopas.